Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hi everyone, today's video is sponsored by Ada, and we wanted to take a moment to talk to you about something important. Now that we are in the winter months, it's time to talk about some common health issues that we encounter, like the flu, RSV, allergies, and of course, COVID-19. COVID-19 can affect each of us differently, especially if we have certain conditions that put us at higher risk for severe symptoms. But here's the good news. I have a quick and simple solution for you. Ada has a free health questionnaire that can help you figure out if you are at risk of getting seriously sick from COVID-19 this season. Even better, it can tell you if you are eligible for treatment. Yes, there are treatments available now that can help you avoid getting really sick. The best part, the questionnaire is super easy and completely free. Plus, it can connect you with a clinician in just 2 hours any day of the week and even on Sundays. So while you are enjoying all the fun stuff that winter brings, take a moment to look after your health. Click on the link below to take the questionnaire and learn more about your risk and treatment options to make sure that you have a healthy and safe winter season. Hello and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try to make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully be helpful to you. Today, we are honored to welcome Lizette Cloete. She is the founder and owner of Think Different Dementia. Welcome, Lizette. Welcome, Lizette Cloete, the founder of Think Different Dementia. Thank you so much for being with us, Lizette. How are you today?
I am very well. Thank you so much for having me here.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. I want to first start off, I introduced you as the owner of Think Different Dementia. Would you take a few moments for our viewers and listeners who may not be familiar with Think Different Dementia and just kind of summarize what Think Different Dementia is?
Thank you. Yes, I would love to. About 4 years ago, when I started down the journey of wanting to start a business to help people living with dementia, I was in a lot of free online Facebook groups where I noticed that there were two things going on. The first part of it was that people were feeling very anonymous and able to just say whatever they wanted without their filters being on, thinking it is a safe space. And it was extremely negative and a lot of just what I call verbal vomit going on. And then the second thing that I noticed was that people were truly not necessarily getting the reliable information. They were getting a person's viewpoint, something that had worked for their family. Maybe they'd seen 1 or 2 people living with dementia, as opposed to somebody who has seen thousands of people over 30 years living with dementia. And it concerned me that there was this negativity, this stigma related to dementia and dementia caregiving, as well as the fact that people weren't necessarily always getting the reliable information. So I started the company with the name of Think Different Dementia because I wanted people to think differently about dementia and dementia caregiving, and that it didn't have to be as negative and as doom and gloom as a lot of people make it out to be.
Yeah. And I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and I think even with a lot of our healthcare professionals, there's that stigma associated with it. The healthcare side, they can't treat it, they can't cure it. And it's almost like a hopelessness from the healthcare side. And then, families see these, memes and information and different things on the internet and social media where they already have this preconceived notion of what dementia is, and it scares them away. And so I love that concept. How did you become interested in working with people with dementia? Was there something related to your profession as a occupational therapist, or is it a personal experience?
It's a combination of both. When I first graduated in 1992 in South Africa, we moved to the United States, and it very quickly became evident to me as I was working with people in facilities, like I worked in nursing homes or acute rehab facilities, that I had always believed that people were in a facility-based care because they couldn't take care of themselves physically. They needed physical assistance.
Yeah.
And then it became very evident to me very early on that that wasn't the reason why people weren't able to go home. A person, for example, would come in and they could walk and they could do everything. They could move around. They didn't need physical assistance, but they weren't able to go home. And the reason they weren't able to go home was because they couldn't think for themselves. They had cognitive impairment. And then I realized that our training had a measure of cognitive education in it, but not enough. So I started to learn more about how to help people who have cognitive impairment. And then, gradually over time, as things happen, one day you wake up and it's like, oh, I really do know more about this than a lot of my colleagues or other people. So that was kind of the professional side, the realization that we as therapists don't necessarily even have the skill set to help people with cognitive impairment. And then the personal side is that my mom was in her early 40s when she had a humdinger of a stroke. She had a massive aneurysm. I was 19 years old. And as she has been aging now with the residual effects of her stroke, the just the stuff that she had happen, she has a vascular type of a dementia picture. And that I became aware of about 5 or 6 years ago. But more recently, about 4 years ago, around the same time I started the company, I started to notice that my father was having some difficulty with his thinking processes too. So not only am I the professional caregiver that understands the science and all of those kinds of things, but I'm also now the daughter navigating this journey and navigating our healthcare system in this journey with two parents that are struggling with cognitive loss.
Is that what ultimately led you to want to develop these group programs that you're offering for family
Yes,
members with
that
dementia?
was one of the precipitating reasons. I had started the company and I always had this underlying desire to actually serve underserved people like all over the world. We're from South Africa originally. There's not a lot of education and resources for people in third world countries. And so I had the idea in the back of my head that I wanted to do something with them. But I was about 2 years into the business when it's just exactly 2 years ago that my dad got really, really ill. And that threw me into the family caregiver side of it. But what I then realized was how difficult, even though I have the education, even though I know what to expect and I can, tell, like I told my sister, I knew long before she knew that dad had trouble with his thinking because I could pick it up. But I didn't expect the weight and what it felt like to actually become the family caregiver. And that made me realize once I kind of got, I put everything on hold for about a year, but once I came through that and could kind of look at the whole world again, I realized that we as a healthcare system are truly failing the family caregiver because, like you said, they go to the doctor. One of two things happen. They go to the doctor, they're telling the doctor, we're noticing cognitive decline. The doctor flat out ignores them, don't do anything about it. That was one of the things that happened to us. Or the doctor doesn't feel that he can do anything about it, so he doesn't even diagnose it. Or even worse, he does diagnose it, and then he just says, well, there's nothing we can do for you. And
Yeah.
so the realization for me came related to I've always been trying to help the person living with dementia through the occupational therapy and the things that I do. But what I've realized is that I really need to focus on the family caregiver, because if I affect a change with the family caregiver, inevitably I will be helping the person living with dementia have a much better quality of life.
Right. Absolutely. Now, is this also tied into like your coaching program? Because you also have group coaching. Does that kind of coincide with the group programs, or is that a separate idea for family caregivers with people living
So
with?
if you want to think about it this way, it's the same concept, it's just different levels of access. So I have a smaller cohort of families that I'm working with more intimately at a little bit of a higher price point, and then I have some people that I work with individually. But the group coaching program, the low cost group coaching program that I'm starting now, is more geared towards people who are not who don't have as much financial resources. I've also realized in my own growth process that if a person doesn't have some skin in the game, like if they don't actually invest in the education, then they don't actually benefit from it.
Right.
I've had people who are if they're not the right person for the group, if they're not somebody who actually wants to make changes and do the work, we take a lot of the work out of it, but invest in themselves in this journey, then they turn into what I call the boiled frog.
Yeah.
That's the caregiver that gets, and this is really one of the biggest problems with dementia and dementia caregiving, and actually, honestly, with any type of caregiving. A person finds out they have a diagnosis of something. We
Yeah.
are extremely good at accommodating and accommodating and accommodating. So we're able to accommodate to the little changes here, the little changes there. And then very quickly over time, though, the heat gets turned up, but we're coping and we're coping. And then one day you wake up and you're in a full-blown crisis because you didn't notice that there were things that you could do earlier on to actually prevent this
Right.
happening. And so I'm trying to get to those people before they hit that boiling point, before they get to the crisis.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, this service, Think Different Dementia, your company, these coaching programs, this group programs that you're offering.
Mhm.
What makes this different? Because there's a lot of online resources. Some are good, some not so good. And
Right.
usually I find it's really whatever's going to be the right fit for the family and their situation and style and, kind of philosophy, if you will. But how do you compare like Think Different Dementia to the other online like low cost member groups that are out there? What separates you in your opinion?
A couple of things. Number one, I realized that one of my strengths, one of my super sauces, is evidence-based practices.
So it's
So
science
I
based.
Right, it's
Yeah.
science-based. It's one thing to say you can help decrease somebody's stress. It's another thing to actually show me the money. And how we do that is I'm building my program on a platform where we're using the evidence-based things that are out there in the group for the person who is the family caregiver to actually track their stress levels over time. And the doctors' offices have these type of questionnaires. The information is freely out there for a lot of these things, but if you don't know about it, there's no way you're going to actually use it. The second thing is I'm a skills to care occupational therapist, which means it's an evidence-based occupational therapy program that is designed specifically to help people with figuring out what's causing challenging behaviors. So I'm really heavily invested in using the science-backed strategies to truly help caregivers. And there is a lot of research out there about what type of things we need to do to actually help caregivers. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is that, and my brain totally switched off. I don't know what I wanted to say about the second part of it. Um, Let me think. But really, honestly, the second part of it is that it is not a membership group.
Okay.
Like a membership group implies like Netflix or Hulu or something like that, that you can cancel your subscription at any time, which is what a lot of these membership groups do. They want to make it accessible to people and that a person can come and go as they want. But the research, the science-backed strategies actually show that a person who is a family caregiver of somebody living with dementia needs the support longitudinally. They don't need support just in the crisis. They don't need support today. They need some repetitive touch points over time. And so when I thought about it a lot related to having people just be able to come and go, my thought process and desire is I want people that are committed, that are going to commit for a year or their entire journey would be preferable, because then we can truly affect a change. If a person can just, hop online and come one day and not come another day, they're not going to benefit from the education. I'm looking for people who are truly dedicated to looking at the future, at the outcome, after the journey is done, not the process of the journey, but after the journey. If you're a daughter who is helping a parent and you're married, what does your marriage look like?
Mhm.
What is your relationship with your children? If you are a spouse helping another spouse go through this process, if you don't look at your own future, what does your health look like? 63% of caregivers can die a lot. The research shows that about 63% of caregivers actually die before the person they're taking care of.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm trying to affect the future health and wellness and relationships of the people that I serve in the community.
Is it a contract fee, or is it pay as you go?
No, it's a one-time flat fee. For the first 54 founding members, I have a smaller group that I'm working with, but for the larger group that I'm starting, I have 54 founding member slots available. That'll be a one-time fee that will be for the remainder of the person that they are helping's life. So
Okay.
if they join as a founding member, if their parent or their spouse lives another 10 years, I promise I will walk with them through the journey.
That's wonderful. Now, I want to go back to the science-based evidence. How are you able to say that?
Well, a lot of different ways. There are numerous different studies with different types of assessments that are actually designed to look at where a person is experiencing their stress levels. So, for example, if there are four different parts, maybe one is the financial part of it, one might be the relationship side of it, one might be the skills side. So if a person fills out the assessment or the questionnaire once a week, and they start off and they're not very stressed, but every week you can kind of see they're starting, because the scores are going to tell us they're getting more and more stressed. We can look and see, oh, everything is in the relationship bucket, or everything is in the I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I don't have any help bucket. So that's how you can use the science. There are a lot of other questionnaires out there. We know a lot of people living who are caregivers experience depression,
Yeah.
right? And it's undiagnosed. So some of the tools we're going to be including in the platform are sporadic or intermittent depression screening. There's a lot of these online assessments that are science-backed and that the research has shown to be effective in helping caregivers, and the caregiver stress assessments, their sleep assessments, quality of sleep assessments, all of these different types of assessments have the science attached to it, but they're not getting to the person in the, in the home, because a lot of you have to typically be in a crisis point
Hmm.
before you get access to those things, first of all. And second of all of those, other than the caregiver stress assessments, a lot of the assessments are being done with the person who is living with dementia,
Right.
not the family caregiver who is taking care of the person living with dementia.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. I want to talk about the stress. Why do you concentrate so heavily on that stress, and how are you able to track it? Are they self-reporting it to you, or is it kind of a secret sauce for Think Different Dementia of how you're able to do that? Why is it so important to focus on that stress level?
Because so there are two things I focus on: the stress level of the caregiver, because that is the thing that the caregiver self-identifies that they are having a hard time. The platform I'm building my program on has the ability to embed these assessments in it. So the stress is the one part of it. And like I said, because the way the assessment's structured, we can look and see which domain, for lack of a better word, the stress is in. And then we can target the solutions towards trying to find fixing the problem in that particular spot. But the other part of it, the other science-backed part of it is a lot of times people experience stress because they're struggling with managing what we in society call challenging behaviors, right?
Right.
Um, and the research also shows that the tipping point for a family caregiver related to institutionalizing somebody is 4 behavioral or psychological symptoms of dementia. So what does that mean? Okay, so they're shadowing, they're crying all the time, they are incontinent, and um, they won't let you help them take a bath. When you get to 4, when a family caregiver gets to 4 of those combined, that's when they are over the edge.
Okay.
So the research actually shows that if you can keep those down, then you have better success in having somebody actually age in place,
Hmm.
having somebody actually stay at home with the right level of support. But when we get to 4 of them, and 4 of them will cause a lot of stress. So that's the reason I focus on those 2 things. Plus, it's an easy thing for a person to be able to track. To answer the rest of the question, the person is tracking it themselves.
Right.
So I don't see their scores.
Okay.
I can see the community score. So everybody in the community, I can see whether the stress levels are going up. I'm in the process of working with the developer of the platform to see if there's a way that we can make it. There are 2 ways that we can try to do it. One of the things I want them to be able to build in for us is that the family caregiver who is taking the assessment, if they see that their stress levels are going up, that they have an ability to download a report to be able to take to their physician to be able to see if we can get additional help for that family caregiver. The second part of it too is I will be working with the families to self-identify to me when they start to get more stressed so that we can work more, even though it's a group, but more specifically with the person. I'll use the small group that I'm working with right now. One of the members of the group, she's helping her mother, and her mother is not eating well anymore. So we're definitely getting to more of a time intensive part where we have to talk about end of life. And so that's where, I'll start to work more in depth with her and her family to help them navigate that process.
Okay. What? So let's talk about the family caregivers here for a few moments. What do you feel, given your experience in dealing with all these family members, that what's the most pivotal important information for family caregivers to know who are caring for loved ones living with dementia?
So I think one of the most important things for a family caregiver to realize is there's this misconception that you don't have a choice. And one of the biggest things that I've realized over the years in working with people living with dementia is that there are only two types of caregivers. The caregiver who is overwhelmed, so stressed out, non-functioning, falling apart physically, not able to cope at all. And then there are caregivers who, despite the challenges, make it through it, come through it in a stronger way. I'm not saying they weren't stressed. I'm not saying that they didn't have challenges, but they came through it in a much different way than the first caregiver. And I took a lot of time to really reflect on this. And part of the reason I took so much time to reflect on it was because when my dad got sick, I was the first caregiver. I
Right.
was that overwhelmed, resentful, oh, woe is me, why me? That was my response. And it was a very wrong response in this regard, that the moment I actually said, Lizette, what are you doing? Why are you thinking like this? Why are you not looking for the solution? When I decided, like, I didn't want to live like this, it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all to be that stressed and overwhelmed, decision fatigue. And I get it because I've lived it. I know it's a real thing. But the only thing that changed was how I thought about it.
Hmm.
Like, nothing else changed. We're still in the same situation, but the way I was thinking about it changed. And so I really recognized, when I stopped and thought about it, all of the caregivers that I had identified that was the second caregiver, they were the ones that actually decided that they were going to, number one, be a caregiver, and number two, be a caregiver, but still make it through it without losing their whole entire life in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. And, those family caregivers, first off, they don't know what they don't know, right? They get good information. They might get some bad information. And oftentimes they get no information. And I think it's important for them to know that there is good, reliable support systems out there, people out there, and these resources, like Think Different Dementia, that is able to help them, through the ups and the downs, because it's a long journey oftentimes, and there will be bumps in that road, but sometimes there's, those good times too. It's not all doom and gloom. Most family caregivers that, I have spoken to, either professionally or through All Home Care Matters, they'll say, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. Once they kind of get their bearings and they get that extra support and at least some guidance, it's usually a very rewarding experience.
And that resilience and that looking to the future and that realizing that you can affect a change in the person that you're helping
Right.
in their life, that is what sets the successful family caregiver apart. I'll use myself as an example. You were talking about information and information not being available.
Right.
When my dad was diagnosed earlier last year, he was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. And I'm trying to be gracious to the healthcare system. I am a healthcare provider. And so I try to be gracious, and I try to say it's because I told them what my background was. I told them, that I'm an occupational therapist, and I explained that I had noticed his cognitive loss about 2 years before we were actually there. But we left the office. My dad had just gotten a diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment, and the physician's office did nothing. Nothing. There wasn't even a brochure or a document or a handout or something to give to my dad that says, hey, this is what you've just been diagnosed with. This is what it means. Nothing.
Right.
It was like, come back in a year. And to be very honest, this was the specialty place. This
Yeah.
wasn't just the family practice.
The place that should have the answers.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they are not putting people in. They're not putting the family caregivers that are that have a person who's being diagnosed with this. they're not giving them the resources that they need.
Right.
And it's one thing, and back to my statement about people not even getting a diagnosis. It's one thing to get a diagnosis and you go to the doctor and they say, oh, your mom has Alzheimer's. Well, that's fine. You can get online. You can research Alzheimer's all day long. The information is out there, but it's like baptism by fire hydrant. How do you know what you need to know?
Well, and I would just interject on that too. When people do search a diagnosis, whether it's dementia or some other health issue for that matter, consider the source where the information's coming from too, because not all information is good information. So just make sure it's a trusted, reliable source. Maybe it's, Think Different Dementia. Maybe it's the NIH or, the Alzheimer's Foundation or associations. Just make sure it's good information so that you're not setting yourself up for failure either in the present or in the future with bad information.
Absolutely. But the flip side of that is the information is out there, and the Alzheimer's Association has great information, the NIH, all of these places, there's a lot of really good information out there. The problem is, you can buy a book, you can read the 36-hour day, you can buy lots of different books on dementia. The information is freely out there. The problem is you then have to figure out,
You have to apply.
what do you need to know?
Yeah. Right.
I've spent 30 years working with this population. I've seen thousands of people over 30 years.
Right.
I started out not being really good at it, and then one day I woke up and I'm extremely good at it. And it significantly decreases the time and the effort you have to spend
Right.
in trying to figure it out. Like, you can figure it out on your own, but it's going to take a long time.
Absolutely. Lizette, who would you say is a good fit, or what is the ideal candidate or family caregiver for your program, and who would not be necessarily a good fit for your program?
That is a really good question. A good fit for this program is somebody who is very proactive, a person who wants to have a structure or know, the best way to get there. Somebody who is going to put in the work, who is wanting to learn, who will go out and actually apply the information. I allow whole family units to join. So if it were you and you had 4 siblings, I will allow the whole family unit to join for the same price, because it takes more than one person. Where some people, they don't join because they think, oh, my siblings aren't going to join with me. Well, they don't have to. They're welcome to, but you should still join because you're the one probably then that's the primary decision maker.
Right.
You're the person who is making those decisions, know something's coming along. I've had a lot of success with being the mediator between sibling sets, because siblings come into anything with their own baggage from when they were kids and with their parents, or those kinds of things, or blended families. So it's sometimes helpful because it could be one family caregiver sees what's going on and the others don't because the one lives close by. So those are the people that tend to be very successful in it. The people who do not tend to be successful in a program like this are people who just want to come and express their frustrations, or just come and when I talk to them and I give them things to do, their automatic response is, oh, it's not going to work. You have to have a mindset of going into this program with the view of being able to actually affect change.
Right.
But you have to do the things in order for the change to occur. It's like going on a diet. It doesn't help saying you want to try to lose weight if you keep putting the chips down your throat. You have to change your own behavior. Nobody can change your behavior but you.
Right. So true. Where would, for viewers and listeners that are interested in learning more or for signing up, where would you like for them to go?
If people want to get to know me a little bit better, I would recommend they listen to my podcast. It's called Dementia Caregiving for Families. I do two things there. I do a solo episode and then I do an interview where I'm trying to bring other professional people in and talk to people about different things related to caregiving. So that's a good place for people to just, if they want to hear how I think and how I answer questions and what viewpoint I'm coming from, that's a great place for them to start. I have a free monthly workshop that I do also where I help people with just 3 simple tips for strategies for challenging behaviors, managing some challenging behaviors that'll help them see, the beginning process of how I take people through this process. If they're ready to actually commit, I would recommend that they can reach out to me. Right now, it's, I'm in the founding members phase. I want to actually talk to people, make sure they're a right fit, so they can reach out to me and we can schedule a call. They can go to my website. It's called Dementia Caregiving Made Easy, and just schedule a 20-minute call. We'll see if they're a right fit.
Is that .com?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, Lizette Cloete, thank you so much, my friend, for all that you're doing to help family caregivers and to raise awareness and to support these family caregivers. It's vitally needed. I know your heart is in the right place as well as your expertise, and we look forward to, helping however we can in the future, and just appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me here.
Our pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms or watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to say thank you again to Lizette Cloete for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time here at All Home Care Matters.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.